In today's video, I'm creating this cute little journal from a file folder. This is my prototype, but I'll make another on camera and we'll decorate it today. I have a couple more file folders here, but you only need one file folder for this project. Despite the small size, there are 4 pages to this, and I'm going to make an alternate version today. Welcome to another Phantom Charm Studios tutorial. My name is Tammy. My husband Michael and I own an Etsy shop by the same name, and we sell digital files like clip art, pattern paper, and junk journal kits. I'll be using our Whimsical Christmas junk journal kit to cover my journal. These half pages are what inspired this project. I wasn't able to create a fall or a Christmas journal this year, so I got the idea of creating a smaller project that would be easy and I could slip into a larger journal later on. I know for me, I'm always looking for ways to use my half pages more often. So why not shrink them down and create this little mini book? I printed my half pages at 75% and I'll cut the file folder to match the dimensions of these half pages. If you want to make this project, you can use any kind of half pages in any theme. It does not have to be Christmas or holiday. Let me flip through the pages real quick. I didn't print the whole kit. I just printed enough pages to cover my journal and a few ephemera pages to add some additional details. So here we have a journaling page with gifts and a poinsettia design. And here's Santa. I'm going to use this page on the cover of my mini book. I will also use this journaling page, but it will get cut down a bit. Another journaling page with a girl drinking hot cocoa and a Christmas tree. And the last 2 half pages with gifts and candles. These 2 ephemera pages will give me plenty of additional tags and cards to add into my journal. This first page I printed out at full size, and the second page I also printed at 75%. I'm going to set these aside and we'll get started with building our journal with the file folder. Like I said earlier, you only need one file folder to make this book. I made my prototype with a folder with a tab on the bottom of the folder. You can see that here where the tab was. Today, I'll make one with a tab at the top of the folder. I would not recommend using a file folder that has a tab in the middle. So find a folder with a tab at the top or the bottom. My book has a total of 4 pages. It has the outer folder, and then I added 2 pages that turn inside the book. Today, I want to make my book a little different. I'm going to attach these 2 pages in the middle and create a pocket. This is not necessary if you want to keep the journal to 4 pages, and I'll still kind of show that. By making a pocket, I can add another smaller journal that will slip into that pocket. When I cut the file folder, there's a leftover piece that I can use to bind an insert journal that I can use for more journaling space and for more photos. I'm going to grab my paper trimmer in a moment and cut this file folder. Here are the dimensions of my half papers when trimmed and cut in half. They are 4¼ inches wide by 6½ inches tall. If your papers do not measure the same, you'll need to adjust your cuts accordingly. I'm cutting the file folder to be the same size as my half pages. There will not be any extra border around the outside edge. The first cut I'm going to make on my file folder is to cut at 6½ inches tall. I will use a paper trimmer for this, but feel free to use a ruler to tear the folder if you want. The manila paper is a bit thicker than copy paper, so I'm going to use a trimmer. I'm placing the folder in the trimmer with the file tab above the cut line so that when I trim this, the piece I'm keeping has the tab. My folder is lined up and I'm going to make this first cut. This is the piece that's left over. Keep this. Not only can you use this leftover piece for tags and journaling spots, but I'm going to use a portion of this to make another mini journal for the pocket in my file folder album. Just double checking my cut to make sure I did that right at 6½ inches. The next cut I need to make is to cut the width to 4¼ inches. You want to make sure you're keeping the fold side above the cut area because we are using the fold in the journal we're making. I'm lining my file folder to 4¼ inches and I'm going to make this second cut. So now you have 3 pieces. The smaller piece with the fold in the middle and 2 pieces that have the file folder tabs. These 2 pieces form the pages in the middle of the journal. This is the main piece for my journal. And once again, with my ruler, I'm just double checking that my journal measures 4¼ inches wide and 6½ inches tall. When I put these pages inside the journal cover, you can see that the folder pieces are too long and they hang over the side of the journal. So the next thing I'm going to do is get my scoreboard so that I can add score lines for the folds we'll use to attach these pieces to the journal. I need to add a 1/2 inch score line to both of these pages. So I'm lining up with the 3 inch mark and I'm making my score a 1/2 inch over. I'm doing the same thing with my second page, making a score line at 1/2 inch. I'm creating the flaps that I need to attach these pages to my journal. I'll just fold each flap on the score lines and we'll see how this looks in the journal. So this is when I realized that the page in the back is just a hair too tall and I should have made the score line at 5/8 of an inch instead of at a 1/2 inch. If you end up with the same thing and the overhang does not bother you, don't worry about it. It's fine the way that it is, but I don't want that extra bit. It's an easy fix. Placing this back on the scoreboard, I'm gonna go in for another 1/8 of an inch or just find the next tick mark and score this again. I'll be covering up all of these edges so you won't even see that there's an extra score line in my completed journal. As mistakes go, this was a pretty easy one to fix. Once I fold at the new score line and add this with my other page, this is now fitting perfectly into the journal. So let me clear off my desk and we can put the journal pages together. Before I glue these pages in, I want to miter the corners of my flaps, which is to say cut off the corner of each flap at an angle. This is optional but highly recommended. Removing that corner just helps the flap attach to the journal better. I'm just eyeballing this and cutting above the score line. It doesn't matter which angle you cut these at, just trim off that corner piece. I'm using Fabri-Tac to glue my pages, but feel free to use whatever glue you like best. Adding glue to the folded tab, I'm gluing these 2 pages together, making sure the edges line up and that all the sides line up, and then I'll wipe off any excess glue that seeps over the edges. Since I'm making a pocket, I'm adding glue to both sides to close this up now before I attach this whole thing to the journal. If you don't want to have a pocket, skip this step. Now I just need to add glue to this tab and attach my pocket or the 2 pages if you didn't close up the pocket inside the journal. When I place this in here, I'm making sure to attach my pocket to the right side of the center fold line. You don't want to have this pocket overlap the fold line because then the journal won't close. Now we get to cover the journal. I need to trim my papers to remove the large white frame around the outside of my half pages. Again, the reason for that frame is because I printed my half pages at 75% of their full size, so the image is printed smaller. I'm not going to use my paper trimmer this time. I'm going to use my Tim Holtz design ruler and just tear the paper. I think the torn edges will add a nice feature to this journal. I'm sorry for the camera angle on this. I didn't realize that only part of the paper was in the camera frame. All I'm doing here is just placing my ruler down against the edge of the printed half page and tearing against the ruler. I did print my half pages on premium cardstock. By tearing the paper, you get a nice, uneven, tattered edge. And if that bothers you, cut them all with scissors or a paper trimmer. With my trimmed page, I'm going to eyeball where the middle of the paper is and will tear this down the center to give me the two half pages. It may or may not be the actual center. If you want to be more precise, you can always measure your printed page, find the center with a ruler, and mark where the middle is. Tear or trim the paper that way. And I'm going to repeat this process for all of my papers. If you want to ink the edges of your project, now is the time to do that. I'm inking all of the edges of my file folder journal and all of my papers with Tim Holtz to Stress Oxide ink in black soot. Feel free to use your favorite ink in whatever color you prefer. And if you don't want to ink edges, that's fine too. This is going to take a while, so I'm going to finish this off camera. Now that I have all my papers inked and my journal is inked, we can start gluing down the papers. I'm going to use this adorable Santa on the front cover. To glue this down, I'm opening up the cover and to place this whole journal down on my desk and adding the glue directly to the file folder. Again, I'm using Fabri-Tac for this. It's my favorite glue for journal making. It's not water-based, so it's not going to warp the paper. I'm making sure to get glue all the way around the outside, especially in the corners, and then wiping off any excess glue that seeped over the edges. For the next page, I'm going to add the image with the poinsettia. That image is oriented to the left corner of the paper, so I'm going to use this on the left side of my journal. I want to add journaling space on the front of the pocket, and I think the page with the roses in the bottom right corner is going to work. I'll need to cut it down, but I'll probably do that one last after I've covered all the other pages. On the next page, I'm going to add the image with the wrapped gifts. When placing the page to glue it down, make sure to stay away from that center fold line. If you're gluing on the left side, stay to the left of the center. If you're gluing on the right side, stay to the right. On the next page, I want to add the Christmas tree. And when I glue this page, it will cover up the flap from the pocket. So like I mentioned earlier, the flap that I used to attach the pocket is where I added that extra score line. So I knew it wouldn't matter because it gets covered and that little mistake isn't going to show. By adding this page over the flap, it's also going to reinforce the pocket and keep it in place. On the back side of my journal, I'm going to add this paper with the 3 pillar candles. I wasn't sure if I was going to use this one or not. I didn't ink the edges earlier, so I need to do that now real quick. As before, I'm adding the glue directly to the file folder and making sure that when I glue the page down, I'm staying away from that center fold line. Lastly, I want to cover the front of this pocket, and I'm going to use this page with the journaling lines. I think if I place this over to the edge of the folder, I can just trim off an inch or so on the left side of the page. Rather than eyeball it this time, I'm going to grab a pencil and mark where I need to trim this page. If I get it wrong, I would need to reprint this whole thing, and there's just no need for that when I'm so close to finishing this little journal. I will just make a mark where I need to trim down the page, and it looks like there's some glue that seeped over the edge onto the center of the file folder. That's another thing I love about using Fabri-Tac to make journals. When the glue dries, you can just rub off any excess. I'll tear my page against the ruler again so that I keep the edges consistent. It looks like it's about an inch that I'm tearing off. And I'm so sorry that this whole page, once again, is not in the camera shot, but I think you can see what I'm doing here. And I will also ink the edge of the paper so that it looks the same as the rest of the journal. This looks good. There's plenty of room between the edge of my paper and the fold line, so the journal's still going to close. Grabbing my glue, I'll add glue around the outside edge of the folder and quite a bit in the center of the pocket. I want to make sure that these pages are glued down pretty good and will stay in place, especially since this is for Christmas and it might get opened and handled more than some of my other journals. Once my page is down, I wipe off any excess glue because you want to make sure that excess glue isn't attaching to something it shouldn't be attached to. You don't want to open your journal the next day and find out that two pages are stuck together when they shouldn't be. And this is where I'm going to call it done for today. Thanks so much for crafting with me. I hope you love this file folder project as much as I do. As I mentioned earlier, I also want to make a small mini journal to tuck into that center pocket. That will be coming up in the next video. So I will see you then.